Well, good evening. So I'm Peter Couchman from Irish Seed Savers. And when I was asked to come along and do this session, I thought let's actually really focus on some of the ideas behind membership rather than just simply the nuts and bolts of what we've done before. Obviously, we've got an audience of people that either have an interest in membership or are actually having to physically do it as part of their work. If you do, obviously I express my deepest sympathies to you. If there was one image, I think, over the last week for me that summed up the challenge of making membership work in any size of organisation, it would be this. So little resource to actually try to achieve move so much, but at the same time actually having the optimism to at least try. I've spent my life in membership in various forms. I started off here in Brighton in Sussex in England, Brighton Co-op, which was a very traditional, fairly large consumer co-op society. The co-ops in the UK had a very strong historical background of membership, but in many ways had reached a stage where it had become quite old and tired in there. And I suppose I was part of a generation given the task of trying to refresh membership and going on to some of the other co-ops, both in London and then, as mentioned before, Oxford, Swindon and Gloucester, where we really got to experiment with what does membership look like in the modern world. So that's where part of the things that I'll be drawing on this evening for. But I also then went on to be the chief executive of the Plunkett Foundation. The foundation was founded by Sir Horace Plunkett, the pioneer of Irish agricultural cooperation. And he then took those ideas around the world. So it was our idea to take these original Irish ideas around in different places. And our main focus was on rural communities taking control of services that they were losing by cooperating together. So things such as saving the village shop, or in more recent times, saving the village pub. But all of them with a community about to lose an asset, taking control of it and organising themselves to run that together. And now these days, I'm delighted to say that I'm now at Irish Seed Savers, working on their supporter programme there as part of the marketing and development activities there. And trying to do my best. So this is the office, the 20 acres in County Clare that we work out of and grow the seeds there. And we have about 2,000 supporters, and it's part of my role to sort of head the team that make sure that they're engaged in many different ways that we'll come on to as we work through. So what I thought I'd do is very quickly rattle through what I would see as being 7 ideas that I've come across and been involved with over the year, throwing in a few examples to hopefully then get some discussion going afterwards. So let's start with the first of the 7, in some ways the most challenging, and that is so many organizations have membership of different forms, either formal or informal, but they actually, to the outside world, look very much like a secret society. That yes, membership's there, but you might struggle to find it. In fact, many of them, membership mainly exists in the filing cabinets. That's where the leaflets are kept. That's where the formal activities are kept in there. So I think the first question for anyone of whatever scale you're working at needs to look at is our membership part of what we do, and is it reaching outwards? Or is it simply something that's locked away in our constitution and actually isn't adding to the organisation? And what I've done over the years is been involved with organisations that sometimes have been in the latter, that locked away style of it. But in actual fact, part of the problems they were facing was actually coming about by not having that openness there. So therefore, for instance, in my co-op days, we actually took it out of the filing cabinets in the head office and put it onto the shop floor, making it large and bold and making sure that people were aware that they were actually shopping in a place where membership was a part of being a customer and bringing it back to them. And so connected to that would be the second idea, which is the idea that in order to make membership work, it's no good simply having a tight organisation looking inwards. You actually need to turn and face the outside world to get that going. So it's one thing to have a membership offer, but is it actually visible to the people that are simply coming across you? People who haven't walked in wanting to become members, but are actually simply looking for interests in their life and actually come across you that way. So that would mean, for instance, if you're running a community shop, you know, rather than simply it being another shop and they simply think it's a village shop like any others, you're actually talking about the issues that you're proud to be owned by that community. And this was an example here of where we found that shops often weren't talking about who they were. And by providing a whole range of materials, it simply brought them to life. It simply meant that customers and visitors couldn't mistake them for being a mainstream enterprise, but actually being something that's special there. So that ability to actually say, not only are we membership based, but the offer of membership is out there and being made to people. And also the other thing for me is that the best organizations in this are actually the boldest in this. There's no end to how you can turn it around. For instance, when I worked in Oxford, we had a fairly dull office building as our headquarters, but it was right on one of the main roads into Oxford. But you wouldn't know anything about what we did from that until we started to do things like this, of actually putting giant banners on the side of the building, unmistakable for all those stuck in the rush hour traffic, to actually then see what we were standing for and some of the issues that we were engaging with. So that to me is the next key step on membership, of facing the outside world. But what is it that actually makes people join and makes people play a role in a membership organization? Remarkably, it's one simple thing. And I've looked at research around the world on this, and a lot of American research certainly, but European as well, and in many other countries for it. And there's just one thing we have to do, and it's a thing we normally fail to do, and that's just ask. That the main reason people give when asked why they don't become a member of something is that I've never been asked. We think that they're going to take all the initiative. We think they're going to take control and be a part of it. But no, they would actually just like to be told they could be, that it's okay. So therefore, to me, a membership organization always has to be thinking, where are we in contact with members of the public? Where are we going to get the chance for that conversation? So therefore, if you're in a retail setting, as you see here from a village shop, actually making sure that every customer is given the chance to be a member. And it's amazing how it turns it around. Human beings like being asked, they like being invited in. And so therefore thinking, where are those conversations going to happen in your world? Because I'd argue that wherever you are in that journey, having that conversation is vital. And now whether that's face to face, whether that's involvement through meetings, etc., or whether it's online, membership shouldn't be something that's buried away. It should be something that's highly visible and constant. Every single contact point should have a membership contact point. Used to say with the co-op that we needed to make the retail front line our membership front line. It wasn't good enough having a membership team in an office. Every single person in the organization needed to ask that question. And we literally got there with that. Even things like funeral homes asking that question. You can imagine the challenges of scripting that one. So that's the next one for me. The next thing that I find organizations tend to rush into, but in actual fact is vital, is answering, why should I join or participate? We're already involved. And what tends to happen is once you become involved, we forget what it was like not to be involved. Our language shifts. So we actually start to talk for people to join as if they already know what we know. Whereas good membership keeps it simple. Good membership actually remembers that people are still at the early stages of learning about us. So therefore, making sure the language that you use is one that actually chimes with them and attracts them in and then develops their interest is vital. And that's the same for every form of participation along the way. So for instance, here, this is a little village shop in Wales, and they've thought through what it actually means to be a member and have made that clear in this case on their website, that you can join and have your say. What does it cost you? That you can vote at their AGM, help us decide what we do with our profits, elect our committee. So therefore they make very clear what their offer is, and it's explicit. There's no mistaking for that. But for many, that isn't the case. And also I would bear in mind that in that conversation, it's not just about getting someone to join. So for me in
David.
membership, so for me in joining, it's things like, yes, we need to recruit members to join, but, and it will obviously vary tremendously what your organization is, you also need to recruit members to trade with us. You also need to recruit members to take an interest in what we're doing, for them to share their views with us, to make us stronger, to campaign with us, and to learn with us. And finally, to play an active role with us. You know, the people that join today may well be the committee members of tomorrow. So that to me is a rounded approach to membership, thinking through what conversations need to happen where. The next one, once people are in, that people tend to fall down on, I find, is actually talking. Now that may seem strange because of course we talk, but what I've found is there is a power of when you actually have either volunteers or people that are active in some way in your organization, is going beyond the basic conversation. Because what you tend to find is if you sit down and have a very brief conversation with them and you say, why are you a member? They will give you the answer they think you want. I'm here to save the village shop. I'm here to support my local store or save my pub or to save seeds or whatever that might be. If you keep that conversation going for longer, something quite amazing happens. They start to switch out of that I'm doing good for everyone else to also what's happened in their lives. Will I volunteer because of bereavement or long-term health issue? A whole range of different things start to come up that's about their personal motivations for being involved. And that is even more powerful because you then start to realize that it's actually a two-way relationship. They're both giving and benefiting from, and understanding that richness creates a much, much stronger organization and why they're connecting with you. So always find the spaces in membership to have conversations, never rely on the formal. Obviously at Irish Seed Savers, it's with our volunteer base, that's quite easy. It's very natural to chat away whilst you're actually doing work in times that haven't got COVID restrictions. But also, obviously, for some, you need other methods. So things like surveying is another good way of exploring what are motivations of people. For instance, at Irish Seed Savers, we tend to say, well, people are very motivated to join us because they get free seeds. Yet when you talk to them, they're actually more interested in supporting conservation and environmental issues, as well as also getting seeds as well. So you start to understand the richness. And there's A, nearly always a richness to that membership relationship, and B, by and large, it varies for different people. It's not simply one answer. So one of the important bits as well is when people actually do share information, is feeding it back to them. This is a co-op leaflet that was sent as a thank you for people who took part in surveys. And the basic idea behind it is to stress that when you share ideas with us, we act on them. We actually take initiatives based on your ideas. So it's worth giving us ideas. So
5-minute call there, Peter.
That's great. So what next? Well, the next one for me is Excite. I'm sure we're all doing very, very important work out there, but the challenge with membership is also to actually get that attention, to actually make sure that we're exciting people in that we've actually distilled down our message to a way that makes people want to act. So in this case here, saving a pub in Oxfordshire, actually doing it in a way that people say, yeah, I want to be a part of that. There's a wonderful piece by the writer Simon Sinek that he brought out recently, where he talks about that every organization needs to clarify its just cause. It's not good enough to describe what you do. It needs to be something that pulls people towards you. In our one, again, we have to not just simply sell seeds, we have to try to be a movement of people that care about the roles that seeds play. And we need to use our site in a way that actually, by the time people have visited us, they've hopefully got that story. Then when you put all that together, I'd argue the seventh one is the most challenging. And that is aligning your values with your issues and your actions. Give an example from my sort of co-op world there. We cared about actually creating a fairer world. And it's lovely to have a value like that. But if people don't experience it, they don't believe you're serious about it. So therefore, many years before, we'd agreed that one of the ways that we could do that was by supporting fair trade, and supporting fair trade long before it was fashionable, long before it was mainstream. You'll notice, for instance, here, the actual the giant coffee box hasn't got a fair trade mark on it because it was before the mark was born. As we evolved in that one, we'd find ways to do things differently to other retailers, such as actually getting growers onto the shop floor so people met the very people that they were buying product from. And then we'd extend outwards as we listened to what people wanted, that it wasn't just simply growers internationally, but also our local farmers and producers that would be seen on that shop floor as well. So what we were doing there, and the point to finish on, is saying that as an organization that cares about making a difference in the world, we have a set of values that we live by. And I'm sure every organization here has that. But unless we actually attach those values to particular issues, people don't know what it is we're trying to do. And to actually make that real, those issues need to be turned into actions. And if you can actually connect all of those together, you have got a tremendously powerful base for membership, and a base that can actually, you can build on, people want to be a part of, they want to play a longer term role with you. So to me, spending time to get that clarity is what makes membership work. And when membership works, achieving our values and making them real in this world works. So I hope that gives a brief taste for some of the approaches that I've taken, and look forward to some of the questions. So thank you very much.
That was great, Peter. I think that was a really lovely insight into it, and lots of food for thought there. So for questions, you can, if anyone wants to ask a question, you can put it into the chat and I'll see it there and I'll shout it out for you. Or if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and just shout it out as well. And we'll kind of make sure we go back and forth on each one.
Okay, shall I take some of the comments on there while we're getting going?
Yeah, for sure.
So Bob Quinn is saying that people either belong or believe. Environmentalists will associate with others who believe, and then others will join if they feel they're part of a community to belong. I don't think it's a complete one or the other. I think they've both got important roles in there. You know, what we found certainly in the surveying work we did with co-op members is there was a whole series of motivations going on there, not just simply sort of a binary one such as that, but both of those are incredibly important. You shouldn't always assume that everyone is a believer. Certainly, again, the work I did at Plunkett with local food systems and community groups there, we found again understanding the wonderful diversity that brought people in, you know, from being passionate about local food to wanting to make a change in their community. People very rarely just had one route, so I think that's a good one there, but I'd go further. Derek says that his mother was first an employee and always a member of the co-op in Scotland for 70 years. I could remember our co-op number today. We used to say that was my problem when I was in charge of membership there, was that people remember their mother's membership number, but they didn't have one themselves. And it was our job to actually create and get another generation to connect with that, but real challenge. So D says, not sure if it's the right time to ask, but any tips about to find volunteers who are willing to look after the membership? It might also be associated with sending newsletters, etc. For me, that's the conversation. That everybody likes to be involved in different ways. There is nothing worse than sitting in an AGM, realizing they're about to dole out the tasks, and if you make contact with the eye contact with the chair, you might be given one of those. So to me, it's about getting the conversations going beforehand to see what interests people and bringing them on board. Probably for something like membership, which again has got a complexity, I'd say start with small tasks. Start by actually giving them a little bit to do and bringing them in there. But some would hate to do that and some would absolutely love it. So find everyone's fortes. It's a team, not just a bunch of individuals. Owen says, my group is a sporting organisation and membership is a necessity to cover expensive, but also make people feel part of the group. we could certainly use some of the pointers and ideas you've outlined there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this applies, you know, to any form of membership in there. Certainly, one of the ones that used to most excite me was I had very good friends in Supporters Direct in the UK, which was where particularly struggling football clubs would actually be owned by their community. So membership suddenly rose to the fore. So to me, exactly that sporting one, you've got a wonderful range of motivations there. People are in it because they want to play that sport and they want to support it, but they want to be part of it. You actually, you know, people come attend sporting activity because they want to feel part of that crowd. And when you win together. So to me, it is one of the ultimate forms of membership in there. And so to me, when I've seen that work well, it's when the club of whatever sport it is really has thought through what is the experience of supporting this club. And that's fundamentally different from, you know, a little tiny community one to a very large scale, you know, national team or county based or whatever. But each of them has to have that clarity of what's it like to be supporting here? What do we do? How do we do that? And what we found was traditionally the views in the UK was it was the big clubs that had the most passionate supporters. But when we started to see cooperative based teams, they actually had even more passion than some of those larger ones. You know, one of my favorites used to be a club called FC United of Manchester. You'll notice the words are slightly jumbled there. And these were people who didn't like the idea of their club, Manchester United, being owned by the wealthy, and therefore they walked away from the club and formed their own very, very small football team and built up a supporter base that way. And they didn't win great big trophies, but they had a great time and they were very proud of their team. So yeah, I think everything I've said can be applied in a sporting setting, most definitely.
There was one there as well, two above that from Emma. How do you encourage new members when you don't have a single location, but are spread over a large area there in West Wicklow?
Yeah, I think I'd always ask, and you may want to put it into the chat, is where are your contact points? So if you're spread over a large area, which yeah, many do, where do people come in contact with you? And that's where membership needs to be. So if they're seeing you in the local paper, that needs to be there. If they're seeing you online, that needs to be there. If you've got occasional activities, you need to be geared up to get hold of them when they're there. So never miss an opportunity, but every time you're in contact, have that there. You know, like one of my jobs this week is making sure that being a supporter is on the till receipt if you come in the shop at Speed Savers. So you go away with that on there. So yes, it will be different if you're very widespread, but make sure that you're not missing a single opportunity to make that offer. And ideally, I would say if you're widely spread, get champions in those individual communities. If you can get one member there, then you can get two, then you can get three, but let them do the talking rather than you having to run around a large area. So just seeing if I missed anything else there. How about, oh yeah, Sean says, how about leadership, inspiration to come together? I think we have 22 environment groups in TIP PPN and we don't know each other. Yeah, I think that works at two levels. I mean, to me, leadership in membership, obviously my background is cooperative, is a very different form of leadership to being in a mainstream business. It's actually first and foremost about believing in your members, to actually believe that by coming together, you can solve more than you could ever solve by yourself, no matter how good you are. And so to me, a good leader in that is one, imbued in the values of the organization, absolutely passionately lives those, not just simply talks about them, and two, is constantly encouraging feedback and ideas to flow. Basically a good membership organization believes that the answers are with their members. They're not something you do to them, you bring that in. And so I would say that in terms of, yeah, I then think you have to learn from each other. So yes, 22 environment groups in TIP absolutely need to be sitting down learning, because, you know, we used to do this when we brought the village shops together. When I went to Plunkett, I was told they'd never travel. It was too far. They didn't want to talk to each other. Once we started offering the chance to talk to each other, we had people coming down from Scotland to the south of England just to have the chance to talk to each other, because no one's got closer to the problems than people who are facing the same things as yourself. So I'd say if you're in TIP and your environment group's got a problem, the probability is that one of those other 22 groups has actually already faced that and solved it. So seeing the benefit of learning together between groups is as vital as moving knowledge inside the group. Who should join up with Ontosca to gain experience in maths. Yeah, certainly. I do think, yeah, it's not just about your own group, it's always about that reaching out. So I've got someone here with a link saying this is a nice model we've come across to use in conversations about why people would want to get involved and what motivates them. I'm not sure what the link is, but I'm sure that's good. But yeah, absolutely, if you see good ideas, share them. Because every so often you'll come across one and say, God, that's what we should be doing. The one for me that I certainly should have been the 8th point on there was from Quebec, where they have a thing called the Double-Veille. And they say most organizations elect a committee and the committee then do it. Whereas the model that they use is you elect a committee, but the committee don't actually know what you want to do. So the first thing the committee does is come up with what they think is needed. Then they go back to the membership to say, is this what we need? The membership says, yes, it is. They then look at how do they actually do that? And then they go back, agree it and act it. So you get this W-shaped: elect committee, consult with members, consider actions, consult with members again, and then do. There's lots of great models out there. Next on there, D says, Carlisle Environmental Network are hoping to host a conversation with all our other local environmental groups and stakeholders, simply just to meet one another and talk about our aims. That's absolutely spot on. Conversation is what drives these things. And yeah, the stronger your networks, the stronger you'll be. So yeah, if you want membership to work, then talk with each other, but talk in a very open way. Admit what didn't work. I did the 7 bits that had worked there. I could have spent a long time talking about all the things that hadn't as well. And some Cornelia's saying sure to make sure to contact Clare Environmental Network. So yeah, okay. Anything else there? Oh, we seem to be making some good connections out there.